Welcome to Kaleidoscope. Let's talk. August is International Day commemorating the victims of acts of violence based on religion or belief. And whether we like it or not, Sri Lanka, with all its tropical paradise feel, has fallen quite heavily into that hole. COVID, for instance, brought with it some of those times when Sri Lanka conducted the forced cremation of Muslims, a practice which is a direct contradiction to Islamic beliefs and traditions. That period was a study in discrimination, bad judgment, and uninformed decision making. A few weeks ago, the stark reality of that black period in our history was taken by the horns when Aman Ashraff released Oddamavadi, a powerful reminder of the importance of religious freedom and equal treatment under the law, as well as how Sri Lankan citizens suffered silently while their constitutional rights were violated. The film is currently being screened at various cinemas around the country, and we have Aman Ashraff in the studio with us today. Aman, welcome. Lovely to have you on the show, especially now that you have Oddamavadi under your belt.
Thank you for having me.
Now, it's a powerful film. It really is a powerful film. But you say this is not a Muslim story. Why?
I think I'm a bit disenchanted with this whole, oh, you're a Muslim, or you're a Tamil, you're a Christian. I think, we're Sri Lankans and we do have issues in this country. This is just one of the many issues that we've faced. I think it's time we start acknowledging it as Sri Lankan issues and not really ethnic-oriented issues, and it's only if you approach the problem in that vein that you're able to bring about a holistic solution. So that is why not just myself, but all of us who are involved in the project felt very strongly that this is a Sri Lankan issue.
So the Muslims in this country have faced numerous chapters of discrimination and strife despite being citizens. Why did you want to highlight this particular incident in
I don't think Muslim rights have been trodden upon to the extent that we faced in this particular instance, because the right of burial or the right to observe one's own religious beliefs is a fundamental right in this country as enshrined in the Constitution. So for that to have been violated without evidence or without, proven evidence, as it were, we felt that this needed to be documented. And in addition to it being documented, we as Sri Lankans, as you well know, we have this wonderful ability to forget things very swiftly. So I think that by recording it for posterity, it would enable us to learn from this horrific chapter in our history and ensure that it never happens again to anybody again.
Do you think this, the incidence of forced cremation was actually ignorance, or was it just blatant discrimination?
When it began, being a Muslim, I was also, adhering to COVID protocols. I was under lockdown, with everyone else in the country, and, we would just hear these things. And it was shocking, but of course, you would presume that, no, maybe someone's gotten it wrong. But in the course of actually producing this film and speaking to victims, hearing their stories firsthand, and hearing the unbelievable narratives about how the system really went out of its way to discriminate, I have to say that it was discrimination. For what reason, I don't know. I'd like to think that politics, that things like this are beyond politics, and that the lives and the rights of people should be held at a higher standard. But there you go.
While working on the film, did you find any reason for Sri Lanka to have such ingrained and almost inherent discrimination in ourselves, a country that loves to thrive on the rhetoric that we are multicultural, multi-religious, multi-ethnic, but somehow it doesn't flow to the ground?
It all boils down to how you perceive issues. If you perceive your neighbor's challenges as a Sinhalese issue as opposed to my neighbor has a problem, or you perceive work colleagues' challenge as a Tamil issue as opposed to, hey, my friend at work has got a problem, you're always going to be drawing lines in the sand. And I think we've come a long way. We need to start changing our mindset. We need to start thinking as Sri Lankans. We need to start acting in that national sense of, it's only if you, it doesn't matter if someone else doesn't do it. At least if you can do it, you'll probably inspire someone to think in the same way, and hopefully the dominoes would fall in order.
When you look at the feedback for the film, what has been the most surprising and what has been the most difficult to digest?
Some of the more entertaining pieces of feedback have been, you should have featured more non-Muslim personalities and, made it more diverse. And I said, no, I mean, this is an issue that, really affected one community in particular. So if there are individuals who are part of the problem or part of the solution and they came from diverse backgrounds, absolutely yes. But merely to feature people for effect, I don't think that's the way to go about doing things. At the end of the day, if something has to be said and if the narrative demands that all the players happen to be of a certain ethnicity, so be it. But I don't think we or anyone else should do something just for effect and just to make pretend that we are all this happy clappy kind of a family, which is not the case when you face discrimination of this nature.
So you very boldly named individuals in the medical fraternity who have instigated this forced cremation rule. What made you do that?
That was in fact something that the medical professionals who we featured felt very strongly about, because something that they were very disturbed by was the fact that the code of ethics of medical practitioners had been violated by the conduct of these individuals. And governments and politicians, you can always predict them to act in a certain way in their own interests. But for medical professionals, they are held at a far higher standard because they have this code that they must adhere to. And I think it was for that reason that they needed to be held accountable for their actions. And it was for that reason that we elected to name them.
So decisions like these are never made in isolation. Why haven't you taken the president and the government at that time to task?
We make this mistake of often presuming audiences to be unintelligent. I mean, maybe they were 25, 35 years ago, but audiences today with the access to social media and information at large are very, very intelligent. And I don't think we need to be spoon feeding them. The point here is to focus on people who are more responsible as professionals, hold them accountable. As for governments, as for politicians, the people will decide.
So, Aman, when you were gathering information for this film, what stories stood out for you most?
I mean, obviously there was the story about the infant child who was cremated at just 21 days. I mean, I remember we went to interview that family, and we had to interview the father and the grandfather because the mother was, understandably so, what she said was, I don't think I can control my emotions in front of a camera, and I don't want to, and we respected that. But I think for me personally, there was another case in Kandy, which is also featured in the film, which was the cremation of a mother, and it was her husband and her son whom we interviewed, and the son, gentleman, must have been in his mid-30s. And this is an interview where we're doing nearly 3 years after the incident, but as he recollected everything, he just completely broke down, and that was a really emotional moment.
Looking back at Oddamavadi and also that period during COVID, what lessons have you learned?
I have found the lessons I learned in my childhood to have proven to be of invaluable use upon reflection when I consider what we went through, because I went to a multicultural school. My classmates were of all ethnic denominations. And, just spending time together, we learned about each other's culture, we learned about each other's religious beliefs. And today, I mean, we've been friends for nearly 40 years and those bonds are still the same. And we understand each other perfectly. And I think when I just look back at what we went through with Oddamavadi, it's amazing how empty that relationship, or rather the knowledge of each other's beliefs and background, how devoid it is. And I think that is something we all need to endeavor to build upon.
When you got the idea for the film, what sort of resources came together for you to put it together?
What was most gratifying was that the people I went to, I mean, obviously there are a few names that came up in my mind, and they're all fantastic senior professionals in the industry. And almost every person I went up to, and they said, Machan, we want to work on this. And it wasn't so much for commercial reasons, but they all said, you know what, this is something we need to tell a story about, because this was wrong, and we need to tell the story because the world needs to know that this inhumanity took place. And almost all of them were of different ethnic backgrounds. One even said, I'm going to do this pro bono because I want to do this. So, I mean, that is the blessing I have had, to have worked throughout my career with professionals who are not just the best in what they do, but they're also great human beings.
Whether we like it or not, Sri Lankans have an ingrained psyche that there are minorities and there is the majority. Now, you, as a minority person, do you have hope for Sri Lanka?
Oh, yeah. Believe it or not. I mean, you know my background. I was a refugee when I came to Colombo. I was refused admission into schools because of that refugee status. I lost my father due to political upheavals in the country. And I still have hope. So, what's your excuse?
And may Oddamavadi teach us all a lesson.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Kaleidoscope is on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and like us for more.